This guy, right? He's like, whatever you need, Chief, I'll stay.
Isn't
like,
that wild?
I mean, he was like,
I got chills right now.
8-9 hours away from being reunited with his family.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that's fine. I'll go the opposite direction.
Put himself back in harm's way. Back in
whatever you need.
Yeah.
This episode contains content pertaining to human trafficking.
My name is Andrew Bice. I spent the last 8 years riding a swell as a special warfare combatant crewman. I've had moments where I felt like I've been riding on tops of waves, and others where I feel pinned to the ocean floor under the whitewash. I've held many titles in my life: son, husband, father, operator. Join me as I venture into a whole new role. This time, as a civvy. Welcome to Civvies, a podcast by MetroStar. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Civvies. I have a very special guest with me today, Kevin Graham with the Village Mission. And before we go into the deep, dark world of human trafficking, we're going to go ahead and start with Kevin's background because that's an important piece, and see how it led to getting into that field and where you're at currently and the good things you're doing with the Village Mission. So thanks for being here, Kevin. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. So I guess the road to how I got into human trafficking is a little long. I started out Marine Corps infantry, active duty. I spent about 8 years as an infantryman. I left in 2005 active duty, and I did a little stint up on the Hill. I was finishing my degree at the time. I thought that was a good place to be. My last actual duty station was at the Pentagon for the Office of Legislative Affairs, military escort, doing codels and things like that, which was a really cool experience. And I finished my degree at George Mason University, and then worked for the state police, the Virginia State Police. And that was my first kind of real, I guess, kind of formalized experience in the intelligence field, right? I was assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force with the FBI. So this is 2005, right? Not too long after 9/11.
Yeah.
And so since a lot of the terrorists had come through Northern Virginia, they had a special task force assigned to that area and kind of seeing what had happened in there. And
that seems like interesting work right there.
It was,
Yeah.
right? They were bringing, so it was part of the, I guess, kind of like a JTTF aside, right? Because they had that out of the Washington field office, but this was a different task force in Northern Virginia. And it was a lot of like scared people still, right?
Yeah.
In 2005. And there was a lot of people saying, hey, there's someone suspicious taking a picture of the bridge, and we had to send people out there. Well, it's DC,
Yeah.
right?
You got some sightseers out there.
There's a lot of tourists still coming to take pictures of things. And so it was a lot of chasing that down. I did a really cool thing where I was doing a study with some of the transit police, going through metro tunnels and trying to figure out how much, explosives it would take to bring down a metro rail, and doing really cool things I never thought I'd do before. And that got me really intrigued in more counterterrorism versus anti-terrorism, which is what I was kind of doing in the Marine Corps for a little while. And more so like the formalized practice of intelligence, right? I got my clearance and higher levels of clearance and doing all that and interagency. So it was really interesting. So I was still, in the government. I left for a little bit and did a little bit of contracting work. They dangled the golden carrot in front of me for.
They got you, didn't they?
They got me. It was also right at the time when fusion centers were coming about. And so I was, because I was assigned technically to the Virginia Fusion Center, assigned to this task force in Northern Virginia, that was kind of a hot commodity because they were building these up, right? And so they used me to kind of go around and help stand up these other efforts. I thought I was a little early in my career to be used in that capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really find it too fulfilling. I wanted to do a lot more, and so it was during that time I started going to get my master's degree at Georgetown. And I became friends with someone that I knew she had something to do with DOD. I didn't really know what, but we can kind of smell each other out, right?
Yeah.
And we became friends, and she's like, well, what'd you do in the Marine Corps? I told her, and then, what'd you do here? And told her, and she's like, you don't seem too happy in your current job. I'm like, yeah, I kind of miss getting into it and getting after it. I was like, what do you do? She's like, oh, I do some stuff, and kind of vague. I was like, oh man, you must do some cool stuff. If you're not talking
you build
about
it up in
right?
your head all the time, like, yeah, she's getting wild.
And so she was asking if I was up to a career change, and I was like, yeah. She's like, well, listen, and she's like, I can't really talk too much about it, but if you're interested, like on this date, if you're free, like come to this hotel at this time. And I was like, well, that sounds cool. Like,
that's like James Bond right there. Yeah.
And so, like, sure enough, I'm showing up in the middle of, in DC at this hotel, and I go to this conference room, and there's the 5 people, I think, behind a table, and they're asking me all these questions about
You had
stuff.
no idea you're going to get into that. Just blindsided completely.
Yeah. And they just asked me some questions. I won't go into it here, what it was. And next thing you know, I'm going to a base, and then, asking me about, special forces and all these things. Anyway, so that was my first taste into the kind of like the black soft community. And originally got hired onto a Joint Warfare Analysis Center. They had a task force, a unit supporting task force, and deployed with them, and then eventually got hired onto organically in the JSOC community, which changed my life forever. Right? It was the best job I could ever imagine. That kind of led to within that enterprise, my job was more often than not was to go out on my own, not deploying with a unit, but to deploy to then augment other members of the intelligence community, to be kind of the JSOC representative inside that community, to go in and offer the enterprise organic capabilities to be able to then augment operations overseas, specific to finding high valued individuals, HVTs, to target, and then U.S. hostages or Western, hostages to be able to go in and find. So a lot of that involved me living out in the economy, either in an apartment or hotel, just traveling on my own. Yeah. And that put me in a lot of these places you can imagine, like face to face with human trafficking daily, seeing it happen and not being able to do anything about it for obvious reasons, right? Like I was there for a very specific reason, and that was not to interfere with what was going on in front of me.
Right. The other thing right in front of your face, the elephant in the room there, which was human trafficking.
And a lot of other nasty stuff, right? Yeah. I mean, you've seen stuff overseas too, right?
Yeah,
like you
100%.
See what's very normal in a lot of other places that we're operating in is horrific to what we would say.
Yeah, so I know, right? To all those people who don't maybe travel outside the U.S. or don't have that to be able to immerse themselves in different cultures and see how they do things and how they operate, it could be eye-opening. And then when you get there, you experience it, and then you see it going on. There's also another side of that too, is when you're there, you're like, I mean, it's apparent what's going on. Like, we need to be doing something about it. So, then we can talk about the whole political game and, treading lightly. That's a whole nother world, but it is interesting. And I think a lot of people here to experience stuff like that, I think it'll open their eyes, you know what I mean? To be immersed in someone else's culture and see that firsthand. In the US we have it and so good. Yeah. And sometimes people don't appreciate it. So,
yeah. I mean, I remember I think maybe one of the first times I was in a very nice hotel. And I was in the lobby, at the bar having a drink with the kind of in-country person that we were, waiting for someone else to meet to then talk about, what we were doing the next day and who we were meeting with. And, I just saw someone just parading clearly underage girls through the lobby and getting into a room that were dressed extremely inappropriately.
Right.
There was just no question of where they were going.
Yeah, 100%.
And I just looked at the guy who was from there and
did bat an eye or
no, and he just looked at me and he just did one of those looks like don't
just stay out of it right now.
And I was like, whoa, my God. And then you start. I mean, it was like one of my first or second nights in country, and you just start seeing it over and over. And then different parts of the world, you start seeing different things, and it's like, oh, this is just happening all over the place. Anyway, so that
maybe the seed was planted there, as far as maybe something needs to be done, or I'm going to take this firsthand.
Well, I don't know that I ever thought that I'd be able to do something about it. Right? I just started taking that on as like, one more thing that we all bring back is like a scar or something, right? Like we all bring back our stuff, right? And it's, you know, some people have horrible PTSD and, you know, we lose friends and we lose a bit of our soul and all the stuff that we do. And I just thought that was one more thing that I was going to take back from this life is, well, shit, now I got to see all these, you know, kids and imagine what's happening to them. As I, you know, as we fast forward now to 6 years ago when I left government, as I transitioned and had a really hard time, like a lot of us do, of finding like, what am I going to do now in the private sector?
Yeah.
In this world that I have no idea how I'm going to fit into. My wife, genius, right? I married up, thankfully, like a lot of us do.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
She's like, you gotta find something to do to get out of bed. Like I found a great job. I was very successful, made a good salary, thankfully. Like I found something to do to make money to help to, you know, to balance out, provide, to help, you know, make money for the family.
Yeah.
But it wasn't keeping me like motivated, right?
Yeah.
You don't have that, you can't possibly find that same job satisfaction level. So she's like, you got to find something to be passionate about. What is it that's going to give you that same sense of reward or at least come close to it? What are you passionate about? And so I started thinking back and that popped into my head very early is like, what can I do to help maybe pay a little bit of penance for seeing all that I saw over those years and not being able to do anything about it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they always have that famous quote, that popular quote that everyone always talks about, you know, evil prevails when good men fail to act. And then, I mean, seeing some of that, not being able to do anything, that's probably weighs on you, you know, it weighs on anyone. And then, hey, let's bring this back full circle and let's start doing something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from there, you decided, hey, I'm going to take action. We're going to push this forward. How did that start? Yeah.
So so again, my wife, and then we have a very good, former business partner of hers. And he's, you know, also like life coach, mentor, and just all around amazing human being that just seems to know everything. This guy, I don't know if I'll use his name because I don't know how you feel about that. He was a former lawyer for one of the most well-known circuses in the world.
Barnum and Bailey. I'll say it.
So
it's the only one I know. That's
this guy has some amazing stories about, you know, legal action and just the legal things that happen around us, our circus life. So he's a fascinating human being in his own right.
Circus life is a wild place, huh? I did not.
You think the special forces community has some wild shit going on? You wait to hear about the circus life.
It doesn't even touch
this guy has amazing stories, and he's just a fantastic human being, and he knows a lot about business, and he's just a great. So between my wife and this guy, go to them and say, hey, yes, like human trafficking is what I'm passionate about, is like a side project or something to kind of keep me going. Now what? Because I don't know what I'm doing. And thankfully they, you know, he kind of helped me start the LLC, you know, because he's a lawyer, and he helped me kind of, this is what we need to do, and this is what to think about, and, you know, here's what we can do. And then she's also deeply rooted in the veteran community space, because she kind of took that on as a project while I was deploying. She's like, well, I want to be able to help you in my own way, so I'm going to, you know, she was on the board for our team RWB and like all these, you know, great projects to kind of, so she found IVMF's Boots to Business program, which is free for disabled veterans, if like 30% or more or something like that. You go there and it's like a boot camp to learn about business.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Entrepreneurial boot camp for veterans. It's a week-long program in person, but it's also like a 30-day program online. Before that, they pay for you to go fly. I went to University of Missouri, Mizzou. Amazing program. Greg Beer out there runs it, and they put you through everything that you need to run a business, to start your own business. And then they give you tools after that to make sure it succeeds. And that's how it was created.
That's awesome.
So I went out there with the idea of, I want to do something to try to combat human trafficking. And by the time I left that class, I had an LLC, basically, like at least the business plan and the framework and the logo and a website. And like, it just started happening. But like, there's no way I could have done it on my own.
Yeah.
But there's all these resources to veterans to be able to help get this going and get off the ground. So like, a little help from my friends, like
Yeah.
the Beatles, right? And a lot of help from the veteran community to be able to kind of lift you up and say, hey, if you have an idea and you have a little passion and some drive, which we all do, like there's resources out there to kind of get it done. So I had this, the thought was, let's get a private business going so that, I can go out to the hospitality industry, restaurants, hotels, motels, places of business, and say, I can train your people to know what to look for, right? Identify signs of human trafficking happening so that you can keep your place of business from unwittingly becoming a safe haven for human trafficking.
Right.
At least like let's start hardening your place of business, right? For a hard target and not let people do it. And there are other people out there that are doing this. There's a great group out there in Bend, Oregon, right? The Gardening Group that's doing this.
That's
phenomenal.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
phenomenal
great.
Company. Yeah.
More people doing
Delta
good in the world. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love giving those guys a shout out. They were doing it long before I even came along, right? And there's plenty of room for lots of folks to do this. They're doing a great job. I think there's some folks in Texas that are doing it. Unfortunately, right? It's one of those things.
Right. It's a necessary thing just because evil's out there.
Yeah.
Do you think the society as a whole, like we just turn a blind eye to human trafficking in general? Do you think, you know what I mean? Or do we just don't know what to look for in some cases? So
I think it's gotten better, right? I mean, I definitely think that people know it's a problem. I don't think that people know what to do about it.
Yeah.
And I don't think people know how to look for it. Right. And I don't know that there's an easy answer to that.
Right.
I really don't. Like, I know that there's groups, there's Polaris and there's groups out there that are pushing a lot of content to hotels now. And when you check in, if you know to look for it, you'll see signs out there that say like, hey, report this. And there's a lot of signs in, especially like bathrooms now, female bathrooms you'll see in bars and restaurants and rest stops and trafficking, things like that. Here's a national trafficking hotline. There's a lot more awareness now.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you're seeing numbers go down. And especially during the pandemic, I think if anything, they were going up, right? Because people weren't going out as much, which means that trafficking, I think, was going up and people were paying more.
They'll pay more for it because they were probably hurting for, I guess, human interaction. And then no one's around to see anything go on either. Yeah. You know what I mean? Everyone's sheltered
and online activity was going up, and a lot of the way that people were getting into human trafficking, they were getting recruited online, basically.
That's crazy.
They're getting solicited online.
Yeah, that's a whole nother world.
Yeah. I do a thing. Also, one of the side things I do is I go to schools and talk to parents about how to help your kids navigate the internet online safely, right? To avoid predators.
Yeah.
And it's a partnership with the DHS. Like, I'm not coming up with a lot of stuff on my own, but they put stuff out there and they're saying, hey, if you can go out and talk, like, here's the content, go out and do it. And so I try to go out and do it. I did it at my son's school a few months ago. But it's just to get out there, and you should see the look of horror on these parents' faces when I start saying like, hey, your kid's in like 6th grade. This is not too young to have these conversations. Yeah. And the look of just sheer terror that they have to start worrying about these things.
Yeah.
It's a horrible truth. But.
I know 100%, especially as a parent myself, my oldest right now is in kindergarten, and they're your babies. They'll always be your babies. You can't imagine anyone willingly doing harm to somebody for themselves, essentially. Just to think about that, it gets the blood boiling a little bit. Yeah. Especially for parents too. They don't want to hear that stuff's out there. They don't want to worry about it, especially like they don't want it to happen to their kids. Yeah. Nobody does.
And I try to keep that, when I talk to the parents, I try to keep that a little not so harsh, right?
Yeah.
I try to keep that not as brutal and save the true stories, like, at a minimum, but you got to hit them with a couple of them to make sure that they take it seriously and be like, hey, here's a story of what happened here Fairfax County,
Yeah,
Virginia.
exactly.
Like this just happened last year, and this, we have MS-13 operating here in the area, and here's an example of how they get, girls from their high school and, get them in, and without the parents even knowing about it, and how they're trafficking them every day after school.
Yeah, that is wild.
It's shocking, the stories that I hear from people about it.
Do you think, okay, with that, we'll talk about these kids. They're young, right? They're subjectable. They're in the age, right, where they're figuring things out. And then you have, I guess, gang members. Are these is it like a wide spectrum of people who just want money, essentially? Or, you know what I mean? Like, what is a bad guy, or what is like a person usually?
Ultimately, it's about money. Right?
Okay,
It's a criminal enterprise,
right?
Yeah, at the higher level, but a lot of them don't see it. Like with that first interactions, usually not like it's not some guy with a teardrop tattoo. Like, hey,
yeah, you think of tattoos all over the place.
It's not. It's in fact. I'll give you an example of the story that terrifies people.
Yeah, throw that out there.
So a great example that happened here in Fairfax County with MS-13, right, is a good-looking kid. He's a gang member, dropped out of school, but he's a they don't tattoo him at all. So he looks clean shaved, nice kid. Put him in a polo shirt, jeans. He looks like a preppy.
The old
kid.
Perception is reality trick.
Absolutely, right. And he just says, "Oh, I just go to a different school." But he starts hanging out with he's very attractive. Starts hanging out with people after school. Makes friends, and he's like, "Oh, I'm visiting. Uncle sick." Makes up some story for why he doesn't know anyone else there.
Yeah. Or
maybe he does, and he knows a cousin or whatever, and he starts introducing, "This is my cousin from out of town. He's staying with us for a couple months or whatever." Whatever the reason is, they figure that out. Mm-hmm. He goes in and starts befriending. He goes and talks. All it takes is to be able to get someone right over to the house, and they start talking about, sex. You start talking about, everyone talks about sex now anyway, and pornography, and they're all watching it at young ages, and they're
subjecting them. Yeah, it's all out there.
It's out there.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's easy now. Like, they don't have to worry about how are we going to get them to talk about it. They're doing it themselves.
Yeah.
So they put something in their drink, drug them. Imagine
passed out the whole time, but clear shot of the face. And then they let her wake
up. Put her
in
bed, let her wake up. Hey, are you okay? Like, you drank too much, like whatever. Hey, I want you to see something. And they play the video for her.
Are you kidding me?
And then she starts figuring out, like, no, calm down. Listen, no one's ever going to see this, but you're going to come here every day after school. And if you don't, your parents are going to see this video. Your friends are going to see this video. Right. This is going online. Everyone's going to see this video. But if you come here and you work for us, no one's ever going to see this, I promise.
That is insane.
And now they start charging people, hey, we've got this fresh
American. Yeah, that is insane.
They can make $1,000 a day on this girl.
And then they get stuck in that cycle, and
now she winds up getting depressed, starts doing drugs, and they start giving her drugs to keep her up. Like, hey, it's okay. This will make you feel better. You're not even going to feel it. Like what? And our parents are like, oh my gosh, she's doing drugs at school, and what's going on? Her grades are slipping. They have no idea.
Wow.
So all that is from some guy who they don't even know, right? And that's not like some crazy like movie script. Like that's happening, right?
Yeah.
Here.
That's heavy,
that scares
man.
me,
yeah,
right? Like
it's horrible.
Terrifying.
It sucks that there's people out there and that they're thriving and still like shouldn't even be a thing.
That's criminal enterprise, right? That's happening to benefit a large scale criminal operation. And that's happening with gangs, that's happening with, Eastern European mafia, that's happening all over the place.
Do you think it's higher in these poorer countries, or like, I don't know. Is that like a different
I don't know, because in order to benefit, you got to have clientele, right? You've got to have a revenue stream. So poor countries, people got to have money to pay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know.
That's interesting.
It's like any business. Like you got to take it's probably easier to take girls and boys from poorer countries, because then they can maybe, well, I don't know. It's maybe easier to take them and then bring them here.
Right. That's insane.
Like, I use that as an example of how American girls and boys are being turned and being brought in. Here
inside the U.S. where you think...
Yeah, if you start talking about global human trafficking, that's a whole different thing of how people are being brought in from Mexico and Honduras and across the border that's a whole different, because that's just, I mean, that's happening all the time also.
Yeah. Honestly, that's insane.
Yeah.
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 But it's important, and people should know that that's happening, and that, you know what I mean? There's something that should be done about it. We can't just pretend it's not there and let it keep happening to these kids. And then who knows where they end up. Best case scenario, they get out of that situation. But then we were talking about scars that vets carry from seeing stuff. Think about the stuff they hold inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing that I decided, I think kind of early, was that I was going to try, well, for the company, I was going to try to just do the education. Like, let's try to prevent this from happening as best we can. Mm-hmm. And there are companies out there that are going and trying to do the, like, let's go snatch people out of these situations. And I was not going to do that. That's not me, right? I'm not an operator. I'm not banging doors down. There are other people doing that quite well, and more power to them. That was not what I was going to do. Like, if I was going to still travel the world, I would have stayed in DevGru, right? As an intel guy, and that was the most amazing job I ever had, and I would have stayed there. I want to be home with my family. Yeah. And so that's why I left the government anyway, because my son was born, and I want to, be home and be a dad, and be a better husband and be home. So I wanted to stay there. And then what I also made the conscious decision is I wanted to not do the victim services, because that is a full-time job. Yeah. It is a commitment, and it requires a whole lot of training that I don't have, right? It's a whole nother process, because while I would love to be able to get into that, I know myself, and I would just pour my whole heart into it, right? Because it's hard not to get emotional into that. And so, as much as this was just me trying to do something to help, like that, that's one of those things where God bless the people who are doing victim services for people who have been successfully removed from human trafficking. But that is a full-time commitment. Yeah, because then now you get the crazy, so much, man. Yeah, now you think about them exposing themselves to, like, even just that story you shared. You know what I mean? Like, that carries weight. Now they're getting exposed to this to help. Yeah, but now they're bringing that on too, like trying to help carry the load. Yeah. Absolutely, more power to them, and whoever's doing that, like, I respect you, and like, that's amazing. Because when COVID happened, right? The business was getting some momentum, right? Because this happened in 2019, I think, is when I started. It was getting some momentum. We were starting to get some pretty good pickups, and put the training and education platform together, and then COVID happened, and the hospitality industry went flat. Yeah. Right? No one's got money now to do that, and even now it's coming back, but people aren't spending money on human trafficking training and education, right? But then when Afghanistan fell, and I started reaching out to some of the friends that I had over there, right, and started, hey, do you have a plan? Are you getting out? Like a lot of us did, right? For the people that we knew over there. And then some got out, some obviously didn't. We have a very good family friend. I mean, she's practically family. A teacher at my son's school where he used to go. She's been over the house 100 times. Right, she's one of the few people that we trust, like family, to watch my son. Yeah, she's amazing. And so she, as things were starting to unfold in Afghanistan, my wife went to go pick up my son from school one day, and she pulled her aside and said, I've been over to your house a lot of times. I've never asked what Mr. Kevin did, but I've seen, and so anyone that's been to my house, you walk in, and the first thing is the bar. We have a full bar in the house.
That's a dead giveaway right there.
And the top shelf is all like, CIA glasses, NSA glass, JSOC glass. Yeah. It's like all the, you get shrine. Gifts, the shrine. Yeah, I get you. You get gifts, and when you get a gift for someone and they leave, it's some sort of barware, right? Yeah. The Delta glass and shot glasses and the bullets going through the decanters and all that. So I've got all of that. And so she's like, I don't know what he used to do, but if I have family over there, and they're trying to get out and they can't. And her brother is a member of parliament, Afghan parliament, and her other brother is part of the Afghan military. And anyway, she's got, a lot of family over there that are that are on lists and being hunted. And she's like, I don't know if there's anything he can do, but can he help? And so she came home and said, oh my God, like she's, this is what happened. Is there anything you can do? I was like, I don't know. I've been out now for a while.
Don't want to promise anything, right?
Yeah, you can't. But I'm like, let me go see what I can do. So I went down and then I started getting in the mix like all of us, right? And I jumped on with, Pineapple and Allied Airlift and all the groups just initially trying to be like, where can I fit in? Where can I jump in? Hoping to get a little bit of, hey, here's what I did before. Who can I connect with? And, and there were so many good people.
That's insane just to think about that humanitarian front from people who just want to do good and they'll just come together and try to figure it out.
Yeah. But so here's the thing about that, right? Like, and this may be unpopular. There were so many people trying to do good. Heart goes out to them. But there were so many people trying to do good that didn't know what they were doing.
They ended up causing more harm.
That caused more harm, right? And I don't know a good way to say that.
Yeah.
Because God bless them for doing it. But man, there were a lot of problems that had never been in any sort of stressful situation before, that were getting emotion, that were letting emotion get into it. I left so many groups because I couldn't, like, they were causing so many problems that we couldn't get things done. Yeah. I'm like, I'm sure you saw it. Like, what's happening right now? There's no professionalism. There was nothing getting done. And people were dying out there trying to get in. And I'm like, you're arguing, you're shutting off access, like you're closing signal groups, you're doing this because you didn't like the way this guy talked. So
let's keep the bigger picture in mind here and not let our egos get in the way.
You could tell that there were a lot of people out there that all of a sudden were like, oh, now I'm an operator, like I'm like, and it was like, what in the world are we doing here?
Yeah. You got everyone watching every show on TV, reading these books, and like, now I'm going to get my name in the mix.
That's
and
exactly
I'm going to have something
what was happening.
Guess what? I can put this badge on my name tag, say I did this.
Yes.
I don't care about the people. I care about myself still.
So I walked away from a lot of that stuff. Luckily, it took a day or two, but I was able to get in touch with a lot of the folks that I'd worked with in the past. And they were like, let's link up. And we did a lot of good in the days leading up, like a lot of good. And that story I'll leave aside, but it led to, connection with some good networks and people on the ground in Afghanistan and Kabul and in Pakistan. And so over the past, year and a half now, we've been working to get people out. We started with 20 people that I'm specifically working with to try to get out. These are all most of them are the family, right, of the woman that we know. And then 4 of them are is a former Terp with the Marines that I know. Yeah. This guy I called once I was going to help her, right, her family. I called him and I said, hey, man, are you still there? And he said, yeah, my wife and kids I was able to get them into Pakistan already. They're already there. I'm getting ready to go meet them. I said, hey, man, I need you to stay and help this family, because the guy who's in Parliament had polio as a kid. He can't walk very well at all. Yeah. And I knew I was going to need someone to help him, because I was trying to get them all to Mazar-e Sharif, because that's where, once Abbey Gate closed and H. Kaya was done, I knew they were going to start sending people out of Mazar-e Sharif. And I thought I was going to be able to get them out there on a state plane or something. This guy, and this just talks about the dedication that those Terps have to us, right? He's like, whatever you need, Chief, I'll stay.
Isn't that wild?
I mean, he was like,
I got chills right now.
8-9 hours away from being reunited with his family. Yeah. And he's like, no, that's fine. I'll go the opposite direction.
Put himself back in harm's way. Back in
whatever you need.
Yeah.
And so he did. And he stayed for like another couple months in that country. You go all through checkpoints all the way. I mean, got them in a safe house that I had set up for them in Mazar-e Sharif. Was going to the market to get them money that I would wire to them to be able to get them food, and would go to the airport while they stayed in the house to try to, get them a safe passage to see if we could get them through. It wasn't happening because they didn't have passports. Yeah. Eventually, when it was clear they weren't going to be able to get on there, I finally was like, all right, hey, you're released, right? Like, I appreciate it. I'll never forget it. Go be with your family. Yeah. So we've got eventually, I just in January flew to Turkey, and I was able to get them visas to Turkey. So that family now is in Turkey. So we're trying to get their SIV application expedited so they can come here.
Yeah.
And 10 of them are in Pakistan. We were able to get them from Afghanistan smuggled, basically, across the border. And they're living in a safe house that I have for them with security in Pakistan. And then we've got another 5 in Kabul that we're still trying to figure out how to get out. So that, and I tie that all together because that's all being done under the Village Mission now, which is a nonprofit that I created to basically say, I still have a way to be able to help do this under the human trafficking umbrella, right? Because we know that the Taliban issued a decree that all single females have to be married to a Taliban commander. That's forced marriage. We know they're plucking up children, boys, and they're child soldiering. We know that they're taking young girls and they're raping them, right? And that's sex slavery. Like we know this is all human trafficking. And I'm intentional about doing, we're calling it self-recovery assist, right? This isn't rescue. I'm not going in there and vigilantes, like, right?
Yeah.
I'm helping them help themselves. But it's being done under the human trafficking umbrella because I'm like, this isn't political. This isn't about what happened, right?
Yeah.
I come from the soft community, right? In the intelligence community, we don't look at what happened and how we got here, right? We look at where we are and how to fix it and move forward. I don't give a shit about the 100%. Biden administration or the Trump administration or who did what, or I don't care.
Yeah.
I just care about where we are and how to get these people out of there, right?
Yeah.
So we do it on the human trafficking umbrella. We move forward. We figure out like how to get it done, and so that's where we are now. Is I've dissolved the company that I started. I have the nonprofit now, and I've taken those services of training and education and brought them in under the Village Mission. So it's now kind of dual. In the U.S. we do training and education for companies, and then overseas we do this self-recovery assist where we've got, we can. People right now it's focused on Afghanistan, but eventually if this turns into a thing, then, we can do it in Ukraine. We can do it in other places too. But initially we are just focused on getting these 20 people back home. But now that we're 501c3, we're able to hopefully start getting some donations to help us get these people out of there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo that point as far as you don't care what administration is. I think that speaks to so many vets out there. We sign up to represent, the red, white, and blue and go help people who need help and can't fight for themselves. We want to be those people. We don't care who's in charge. We just want to have a great impact and help people out. And like you said, what's going on? So after the fall, it's like it's on the news, it's there, and then it's off. Like I don't care anymore, right? And what's sad is obviously there's still issues going on. And
I talk to people, man, they don't even think that Afghanistan's still a thing. They're like, wait, it's still bad over there? I heard that. Like last week I heard someone say like, it's still bad over there? Holy shit, man. It's because now everyone just cares about Ukraine, right?
Exactly.
And you can't blame people.
Right.
They see what's on the news, right? I mean, it's all Ukraine. I get it. It's horrible what's happening over there too.
100%.
It's just, my God, there's still.
It's just on to the next one.
It's really bad. Like, yeah. And it's, it's tough to. I mean, the fact is, here's the frustration, and this will resonate with you, I think, very well. Also, when we were, in mission, the hardest thing would be to do the logistics, to carry out the mission. Right? We didn't worry about money. Hey, figure out how to do this. How are we going to find this hostage? Figure out the network, figure out where they are. Where are we going to fly the ISR? Where are we going to put the ground center? Like, how are we going to do it? Whatever. We have all the money in the world to throw at it, especially we had the CT funds, right? The counterterrorism funds to throw at it. Big black hole of money. The hard part was figuring out how to do it. I've got it. I've got all of it, right? Yeah. I've got the networks in Afghanistan. I've got the networks in Pakistan. I've got the networks in Turkey. I've got the networks in South America. Like, I've got everything in place to be able to get these people out of harm's way. I have no money.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's mind blowing. Like, it's the absolute reverse problem. Like, it always just be like the hard part is figuring out how to do it. The easy part's the money. Like, if it's just a money problem, I'm in great shape because here you go.
Yeah, here it is.
Make it happen. And now it's like, oh my God, I've got it all figured out and I've got the people in place and everyone's on the ground, like ready to go to help these people and save lives. And I cannot get money. Like I've absolutely emptied out my thrift savings plan. I've emptied out my 401k. I've emptied out my savings account. Yeah. Luckily my wife has kept hers. I did all that in the first, before we stood up the 401, the 501c3 to try to help the initial, movement.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to do this. I was at, I got my MBA from the University of Notre Dame. And last summer,
I was like there. 3 schools now? George Mason, Mizzou, and Notre Dame. Yeah, I think I recall.
And I have Georgetown too.
Oh, there it is.
Hoya Saxa.
That's wild, man.
But yeah, I was at the University of Notre Dame for the summer electives. Kind of, we can go back and kind of take electives, and my cohort was asking me about like, how's it going? We know you're doing this stuff. I was like, I'm out of money. I've spent all my money on trying to get these guys out, and I really need to link up with like a 501c3 to try to go after bigger donations. And they're like, we're at the University of Notre Dame Business School. Let's just start one.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
And that's literally how it started. Like I took that week to start doing all the paperwork and do it. But yeah, man, it's really frustrating to be in a position where everything logistically is ready to go. And I feel like, you just find the right audience, to someone who wants to help, or company, or
right,
someone to be like, yeah, like we're not just throwing money at a cause. I have pictures of every single person I'm trying to help. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Like this is
These are real
your money's
people.
going to this person to sleep in my basement until they get their own house. Like we're trying to bring some of them here who are going to get SIVs, and the rest who won't, like we're going to put them in a house in Bolivia or Brazil or somewhere, right? Until they can get their next life. But somewhere where they don't have to wake up worrying about, get their head cut off.
Yeah. Who's ready to kill them that day?
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't that be great to wake up and not worry about dying?
I know. That's why everyone wants to come to America. There's a reason people are trying to get here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for the programs that are being done right now, where you're educating people what to look for, you're educating, I guess there's only so much you can do, right? As far as intervention and stuff, it's just kind of building that awareness piece for the human trafficking here in the U.S. Then from that, it kind of branched out to Afghanistan, like you said, and helping those people who are under horrible conditions and fighting for their lives there. Same realm. Now it's trying to, hey, this is another issue that kind of popped in my lap. I'm going to take care of it and see if I can help. And that's kind of where you are right now in both realms.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
and I have a full-time job, and
yeah, of course. Also, that's life going on too, right? You got a baseball game tonight at whatever, you know what I mean, with kids. I'm sure, but no, man. With that, I'll say you're definitely taking on a lot, but in a good way, with good intention, and hopefully, more will come.
Yeah,
because people can sit around and talk all day, but hopefully we start acting on some things.
Yeah,
as well.
It's all about doing, right? And that's why you joined, right?
No, 100%.
That's why I joined. It's why you have a 5-year-old. I have a 5-year-old. It's why I want to be able to tell my son, like, this, you have to be a citizen, right? You have to be an active participant in life, and you can't just sit around. Like, you don't get to complain about something unless you're going to do something about what you're complaining about.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever. Like, that's just the way my dad raised me. It's the way I believe in life. It's funny, I'm an adjunct professor also at George Mason University. I teach in their intelligence studies program. And right now I'm teaching the theory and politics of terrorism. And I had to miss the very first class of the semester because I was in Turkey. I thought I'd be back sooner, but their visas got delayed and I had to go and try to. And so I was emailing the whole class. And I'm like, I hate to do this. This is not how I want to do it. I'm going to miss the first class, but I promise it's for a good reason, specifically to this class. Like, if you got to miss a class, like, this is, I promise you don't have a professor that just sits behind the desk all day. And like, I'm actually out doing things, but I'll tell you all about it when I see you all in person next week. But you got to get out there and do stuff, right? Especially if you have the ability to do so. Like, shame on you if you don't.
Even for, like, even for your own community, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Don't you want to live in a safe place and just not worry about your kids going to school and trying to learn?
Yeah.
And some people aren't even afforded that opportunity, and we take it for granted.
Yeah.
It's crazy. When you help these people and these families, do they reach back out to you? Do they kind of like reignite the flame within, and you're like, hell yeah, like I'm so glad I'm doing this? Like, just one family, you know what I mean? To know that they're living in a better place can, you know, at least make a better situation for themselves. Yeah,
it's interesting. So, I mean, I'll use the family. It's in Turkey right now. You know, we talk to each other every day almost for a year and a half now. He's become like my brother. And so still to this day, we're talking quite frequently. Ask how he's doing. Like, I know that his daughter just had a chest infection and went to the doctor to get some medicine, asked how she was doing. And I know they're in school, and we're packing, you know, little care packages of books and trying to get it to them. And they really are, you know, they really are family. Once their SIV is approved, they're moving into our house. Yeah. Right? And until they, you know, I'm trying to help them find a job and
start that whole dance again.
Yeah, they really are. And I think that's also why, you know, I talked about we're trying to limit to just these 20 people, right? I know myself that in this effort that I'm emotionally invested, right? There's a reason why I use my personal money and emptied everything that I have out to help these people, right?
Yeah.
And it's because I treat them all like family, right? It's not like in the job where you have to emotionally separate yourself because, you know, it's the job, and then you go out for your 4 or 6 or 9 month pump, and then you come back and someone else takes that responsibility, right?
Yeah.
This is not that. Like, I'm not gonna agree to help someone until I can see them through, until I know that they're good. Right. And then once they're at that point, like they're family, like they're not going to get rid of me.
Yeah. They're stuck with you.
Right. Like,
that's awesome. No, it's almost like we're putting a Band-Aid on a problem by, you know what I mean? Like we need to be over there and making change for everyone, but it is what it is.
There's just so many people still that
exactly.
And it's not, I mean, like there's a bigger problem, right, of the Taliban that are treating people terribly. Got it, right? And you can have your thoughts of whether that's our problem or not. Like, okay, that's a different discussion that I refuse to have. It's for other people to have. But there is a problem of the people who have helped us that are still there. And that's a discussion that I'm willing to have at any time, right? Like, those are people who I think that there should be an effort to have. Maybe not by our government, right? Maybe that's fine. Okay. But something, right? We always had the discussion. I'm sure you've had it on your side too. Like, if not us, then who, right?
Yeah.
Like, if not us, then who? Like, someone's got to care about these people. Someone's got to go out, and if you have someone for whatever reason that decided to risk their lives and their family's lives to sit next to me or stand next to me as we would go do stuff, or you know, willing to die next to me, then shouldn't they be taken care of, right? Well, you and I sit here, enjoy a cup of coffee, and talk while they're out there hiding in some false wall, hoping the Taliban is knocking their door and find them and then throw them out a window.
It's almost like we're tarnishing the patch or the flag that you wore. You know what I mean? Right? In some sense.
How do we get people to trust us again?
Exactly.
This is going to come up again, right? We're going to, as a country, like, we're going to be somewhere else in another part of the world where we're going to need people to help us, indigenous people to help us in a war and a conflict. How do we do that when they see how we treat people who help us? Right? It happened with the Kurds. And I use the Kurds because it was a different administration, right? Just to show, again, I don't give a shit about right or left, right? It happened with the Kurds. We hung them out to dry. It's happened here. How do we get people to trust us again?
Well,
that's what scares me if I was still in, because the next door we knock on very likely could be like, hey man, you guys don't have the best track record for, you know, sticking by the people that stick their necks out for you guys. That's what makes me a little nervous. And again, not being political, just being like, from an academic study, like world events. Like it makes me nervous when you look at, when you look at that in context.
Yeah. Well, let's pray to God there's more people out there willing to do more good, and we can bring them in and make it better. So, well, Kevin, hey man, thanks. I appreciate you taking the time today, the mission, what it stands for, and the good that you're trying to bring and, change people's lives for the better. You know what I mean? Like that's huge. And I know we talked about purpose earlier and, finding that reason to wake up. From that and what your mission is, I think you're probably waking up at 3 a.m. ready to go and get it. So, as far as finding you and the organization, where's a good place for people to reach out and kind of do a little investigation themselves?
thevillagemission.org, super easy, all one word, thevillagemission.org. And we got donate now, right? We're a 501c3. It's a private foundation right now where my phone number's on there. Lots to read up on. We've got some great videos of the family that we just brought into Turkey. The sister that I just talked about with her family, she's got a great video on there. The training and education program, if you want me to come talk to the school and you're local, happy to do that. Any of the groups that I mentioned for veterans about the IVMF, Boots to Business, separately reaching out to me, I'm happy to connect you to those like that. There's all kinds of resources aside from human trafficking. Yeah. If you're looking to get into the Honor Foundation, if you're, from the Special Forces community, it doesn't have to just be Navy. They also do, other folks too, in transitioning out, coaching, mentoring. There's a ton of resources on transitioning out too, that I'm happy to talk to folks about. It's a tough nut to crack, man. I tell people all the time, like when I first got out, there's a lot of times when I get my cup of coffee and look out the back window, right, and wait for the Black Hawk to land in my backyard and be like, Kevin,
we need you, man.
You're the only one. Like, we need you to come back and be like, my bag's already packed.
You already have a go bag. You throw the coffee and just walk out.
No one ever came to get me, so I guess they are doing just fine.
There could be some time still. You never know.
Now it'd take like 3 people to help lift my ass on the Black Hawk.
So we're over the weight restriction. You can't even fly.
I'm gonna need a little help on this one, guys. But yeah, look, it's a tough road, and I'm still truthfully trying to figure it out too. Yeah. But there's always strength in numbers. So lots of contact information on the website. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. It's always good to chat.
Awesome, dude. Cool.
Civvies is proudly brought to you by producer and sponsor MetroStar, a global digital services and solutions provider. Life transitions are hard without the pressure of finding a new job. Veterans at MetroStar have built a close-knit group within the organization and are eager to help you on your new path. To explore career opportunities and life at MetroStar, visit metrostar.com/veterans. We'll link that and other career pages in the show notes.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Civvies, presented by MetroStar. If you want to learn more about Civvies or MetroStar, or just want to reach out, check out the links in the description. I'll catch y'all on the next one.